Hey everyone, I'm Jack,
And I'm Alex.
and today we're going to be ranking the bosses of Mega Man 2 from worst to best. Going into 1988, 1 year on from its first installment, the Mega Man series was deservedly flopping and was as good as dead after only a single, albeit terribly unenjoyable IP. After being repeatedly denied the opportunity to develop a sequel, Capcom took it upon themselves to forge the ideal continuation of Mega Man, eventually spawning the creatively titled Mega Man 2 in a last-ditch effort to keep the company afloat.
With improved graphical composition, sound design, and gameplay more focused on being fun over tremendous difficulty, Mega Man 2 not only single-handedly spawned 20-plus games, including 9 sequels in the Mega Man X series, but also redefined two-dimensional platforming forever. This game was a monumental step up in enjoyability, and both Jack and I were no less than very excited to get our hands dirty with this game after slogging through the first. Let's get into it.
It is incredible what difference a year can make. Compare Elec Man to this. Neither Alex nor I even really dislike Bubble Man. He's got a neat weapon, a unique stage that works as a good starting point for new players, and variational platforming that tests the player's ability to balance aggressive offense and conservative defense. I'll assume I'm one of few Croaker enthusiasts, but what isn't there to like anyways? Odds are one of his babies will drop an energy pellet, and even if they don't, they provide a unique challenge to what would be an otherwise bleak bit. However, I don't like the underwater section, partially due to the shrinks, but also the needlessly tight ceiling spikes. If you can't tell from our first ranking, I prefer puzzling platforming over straight up difficult platforming, at least in 2D. Bubbleman himself is pretty forgettable, and I advocated this as a good first level for beginning players. That's spoken from experience, but if you want to get technical, beat Metal Man, get Metal Blades, and wipe your grimy asshole over everything this game throws your way from that point forward.
Most Mega Man games have at least one bulky dude in the mix, and Airman is Mega Man 2's offering to this line of models. First off, I dig the look of Airman, and I think the fan in the middle is kinda cool. He's definitely one of the better looking characters in this game in my opinion. Secondly, I think his stage has pretty cool music and it's generally fun. While I like him a bit more than Jack overall, we both agree that Airman's stage is very repetitive and feels pretty samey all the way through. Other than that bit with the clouds that's reminiscent of Iceman's stage, only a lot more fair, it's pretty much the same obstacles the whole way through. This is one major flaw, the other being the fight itself. The way he controls your movement with air feels like a cheap shot, and the tornadoes reflecting your weapons is obnoxious. His weakness weapon is technically the Leaf Shield, but good luck actually hitting him with that useless garbage. I only hit him with it once, and while it does do incredibly high damage to him, it's much easier to just use the Mega Buster, which still shreds him for some reason. Airman's most lasting contribution to mankind will probably end up being this song a dude in Japan made in 2007 based around a forum post complaining about not being able to beat him, which is a gem tragically few people seem to know about. Airman is up against considerably good competition, so even though I don't outright dislike him, his fight leaves a lot to be desired and lands him on the back end of our combined ranking.
I'd say Crash Man is best compared to Cutman, not particularly noteworthy, but alright in the moment. The classic 80s chiptune theme works well with his level, but the stage itself's got a lack of challenge that isn't a bad thing per se, more makes the level feel exhausting through making you at the very most occasionally snipe a telly that sits in your way on one of those coaster bits. I made the mistake of doing this without Metal Blades, which makes the latter ridiculously hard, but even with only the Mega Buster, the overall level barely pushes difficult. I like Crash Man's design on the home screen, although like Gutsman, what does he have to do with a crash of any kind? Rear end, economic, T-bone, I don't know. Even his wiki page doesn't have an actual explanation for him being Crash Man, and at that his ability is useless and irrelevant to his name, but let's make a fun comparison to the bomb mechanic from LEGO Star Wars. Why not?
Heatman's got plenty of stuff he did right, but first let me just say off the bat that his design looks like a fat baby sticking his head out of a garbage bin, and it's incredibly hard for me to unsee this and take him seriously. His stage is mostly known for that infamous block puzzle near the end, which pretty much everyone I've ever met eventually gives up on in favor of cheating with item 2. I actually like block puzzles, so I usually at least give it an earnest effort, but as you can see here, even my patience has its limits. The other parts of this stage aren't particularly remarkable, but they're fun enough in my opinion. There's a long stretch where you're just climbing up walls with a combination of disappearing blocks and a crash bomber if you have it like I did. One thing I'll point to is the stage has a lot of tellies, which are fun to take out with the Metal Blade, so I actually like them, annoying as they often are. And I know that's sort of a point in Metal Man's favor regarding the weapon, but we'll talk about that later. Heatman's weapon is interesting in that you can charge it up before firing, although I always forget about this feature and don't think I wound up even using it in my playthrough. Mega Man 2 is super weird with boss weaknesses since like 50% of the cast is weak to the Metal Blade, so it doesn't exactly promote use of the full toolkit like later entries do. As for Heatman's actual fight, he's another one I'm pretty awful at fighting, so I just try to nuke him with the bubble lead as fast as I can. He does a ton of contact damage, I feel like, at least when he's moving around in fire form. His scattershot of projectiles is sort of hard to dodge for me, but not impossible. I think running away from Heatman probably works the most often out of everything I've tried. Heatman's stage theme is pretty average, I'd say. I like the beginning part, but I'm not as big of a fan of the later bit. Jack's the bigger Heatman fan between us, so he'd probably have more praises to sing in his name, but I'd say he's rather average in most regards.
It's pretty amazing how a level almost entirely without enemies was done so well. Also, thank the Lord a stage like this wasn't part of the original. I'd compare this to, say, an insane demon from Geometry Dash. It's fast-paced, adrenaline-fueled, and is well made to the point where I don't get mad over repeated deaths, rather I just learn from my mistakes and try again. The only overarching issue I have is its linear design, of which there's only one correct way about traveling through the light beams. More variation over only being able to do left, right, left, or whatever combination of directions to continue onwards would have been a great addition. As always, the boss isn't nor is meant to be the highlight of the level, although for a change, Quickman's really difficult to beat. Bosses like these make you appreciative of move telegraphs.
Woodman is apparently one of Dr. Wily's favorite robot masters according to Mega Man Knowledge Base. He is unique in that he's, as the name implies, mostly made of Hinoki cypress wood rather than steel. For whatever reason, this wood is harder to damage than solid steel and apparently makes him very durable. My Metal Blades would beg to differ, but even if you fight him with just the Mega Buster, he's nowhere near as tanky as some of the other robot masters are. His fight is really simple. He just sends leaves at you and brings them down from the sky. I'm awful at dodging them, but they hurt about as much as you'd expect leaves to hurt, so he's really easy to tank and just dump on if you came in with full health. Also, I already touched on this in the Airman segment, but man is his weapon useless garbage outside of some of the Wily stages. Other than that negative, Woodman himself is average, but his stage is why I like him so much. It's my second favorite in the game from a design perspective, and also has my favorite stage theme just behind Flashman's. I like the first 5 seconds or so of the theme the most. It's a shame that it doesn't ever reappear in the music loop. The stage is really dynamic and non-repetitive, full of varied enemies and obstacles that give it its own distinct character in more ways than appearance. The Fire Tiger mini-boss is one of the less insufferable mini-bosses in the series, which is much appreciated since Mega Man mini-bosses rarely fail to bring my piss to a boil. Looking at you, Hippo Platter. Back on topic, the normal enemies in this stage are pretty fun too. I kinda like guys who can take a few hits since it's satisfying to rapid fire them. The rabbit and orangutan enemies are fun for that reason. Although I will say the monkeys come up at a super awkward angle which is only easily avoided by waiting them out, which is boring. This isn't the end of the world since they do pretty weak damage, but it's still a minor hassle. I'd say Woodman suffers heavily in the cool factor since wood is kind of a lame thing to be based around, but otherwise he's solid and I'm willing to cut him a break for not looking too neat.
Keep in mind I wrote and recorded that during my halfway break of Mega Man 2, leading me to say Flashman is precisely what I asked for. It's visually a great design and as well makes the slippery mechanic that's so commonly found in two-dimensional platforming fun and interestingly strategic. Funny thing is, a large majority of people say that this is one of, if not the most boring stage in the game, and in all honesty, yeah, I agree. If you were to look at it on a pixel spreadsheet, there's almost nothing. It's mainly empty space and vacant tunnels with occasional Sniper Joes or Swarms, but like a lot of Alex and I's opinions, there's no truly descriptive explanation we can give for our rankings. But that's the beauty of subjective opinion. What one would call a casual walkthrough, we'd call an exciting slip inside full of interesting scenarios that formulate into an all-around great stage.
We sometimes enjoy shocking people with our rankings, but this really isn't one of those times. Surprising absolutely nobody, Metal Man takes the gold. He's unquestionably the leader in stage design, boss fight, coolness, and weapon usefulness. Chucking saw blades is awesome enough conceptually, but having it be omnidirectional, highly damaging, and stocked with heaps of ammo is just awesome. It's one of the only Robot Master weapons in the series I use outside of boss fights, and even among that group it's by far the best. Metal Man's stage is full of fun gimmicks like conveyor belts and crushers, the latter of which I still find rather tricky to pass through unscathed. That part with all the screws is super fun and satisfying too. You can get a ton of item drops from it, and just unloading shots into a bunch of fodder is great. The enemies in this stage are pretty fun as well. From the Pierrobot Gear Rider to the resilient Blockies. When you finally make it to the end of the stage, you're treated to the best boss in the game in our opinion, who is not too hard exactly, but is fun to try to dodge regardless. The conveyor belt in the room adds some chaos lacking from most other Robot Master fights, and timing your jumps through his flurry of saws is very rewarding to get the hang of. Metal Man is probably the most well-known Robot Master of all time, and this honor is for sure well deserved.
Thanks for sticking all the way through the video, and we hope you enjoyed. This was the second of 11 Mega Man stage rankings and a considerable step up in overall quality, not the video, the game, and made playing through its precursor feel like punishment. Otherwise, be sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date on our weekly uploads, and with that said, deuces.